Here. Good morning.
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 So we had about 14 participants on our last call, so that's exciting, especially for the first session of the day. And we did have a mix of folks from California and Texas, so also very exciting. Excuse me. So I'm kind of stoked to see how this goes today. I'm gonna turn off my camera, but I'm just gonna sit in the background and witness all of the sessions, and then at the end I'll jump in for the raffle and run that while you guys are answering questions.
Sounds good. Thank you, Sky.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Let's just give one more minute to see if anyone's going to join. I know we have back-to-back. Some people just finished the earlier one and join this one as well. And while do that, I'll pull up my presentation and get ready. Let's double check if everyone able to see it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice. Okay. So maybe we should get started. So good morning and maybe good afternoon, depending on where you are. Good morning, everyone, and hope you've had a wonderful digital inclusion week thus far. And welcome to this second section provided by CTN. And the topic we're going to have today is engaging learners with culturally inclusive instruction. My name is Sabrina, and I will be the main presenter for this session. Two of my colleagues, Audrey and Josie, they will also join me in parts of the presentation, and I'll let them introduce themselves in just a second. Okay. First, I would like to tell you a little bit more about our organization, Community Tech Network. Our mission is to transform lives through digital equity. And we do so by providing first digital direct services to our clients, and second, helping other nonprofits organizations to build capacity so that they can run their own digital equity programs for their clients. And we have been doing direct services work since 2008. So yeah, that's 15 years of experience. And we work entirely with partnerships with social service providers, nonprofits, and government agencies. We have partners with over 50 agencies in California, Texas, New Jersey, and New York. Okay. Audrey, why don't you introduce yourself, and then Joseph will do the same.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sabrina. My name is Audrey Potts Velez. I am actually a bilingual digital equity program manager here in San Francisco. I did start with Community Tech Network back in 2021. And I also do instruction as well as program management. So I am here to answer any questions if you need or have any Spanish-speaking clients that you need assistance with here in the Bay Area. I am more than happy to assist. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Josie Boyle. I'm currently the Digital Equity Curriculum Manager at CTN. I joined in early 2020, initially as a bilingual digital literacy instructor in San Francisco. I speak Russian. And I was also a program manager before transitioning into my current role. So I can speak to the Russian-speaking population in the Bay Area.
Great. Yeah. Myself, Sabrina Tam, and I'm the Senior Digital Equity Program Manager at CTN, and I speak Cantonese, Mandarin, English. Just like Audrey and Josie, I also started working at CTN as an instructor, and I have been with CTN for 6 years now. And I'm still teaching. I just love to work with or interact with our learners directly. So, okay. Well, now, yes, I would like to do a quick poll just to understand a little bit about you, the audience of this section, now that you understand, who the presenters are. So can you please do a quick poll, like answer this question? What is your role in your organization? I'll give maybe 10 seconds. Thank you. Okay. Share results. Okay, you all able to see the results? We have 11 people answer that question, and we have a mix of trainers, content developer, program managers, administrative support, no fundraiser, no board members. Okay, so I'll stop share. And thank you for doing that. Okay, so for today, let's take a look at the agenda for this section. Well, when we talk about culturally inclusive instruction, first we want to have a clear understanding of what culture is. And then we'll go into culturally inclusive instruction. What does that mean and why is it important? We will spend most of the time actually focusing on sharing some CTN best practices with real-life examples. So Audrey, Josie, and myself will share our own experiences. We also collected a lot of different stories and from our instructor team that we'll share with the audience today. And then we'll also ask you to do a little reflection on how you're doing culturally inclusive instruction, maybe at your organization currently, or how you plan to do it. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to type it in the chat, and we will try to answer all of your questions at the end. Well, of course, there will be a raffle for those who stay till the end. Okay, if that sounds good, let's dive in. So what is culture? When we think about culture, okay, a lot of people think of it as ethnic or national groups, sometimes race, but we can also actually look at cultures within or beyond ethnic or racial groups. For example, age, gender, religion, beliefs, social class, abilities, spoken languages, etc. And for our purpose today, we will primarily focus on languages and ethnic groups, but we will also touch on inclusion in terms of technology skill levels, since we're teaching learners how to use technologies. What is culturally inclusive instruction? What does it mean really? If you Google it, you can actually find plenty of explanations, but this one stood out to me and is by Jennifer Bay, who is a professor at the University of Washington, Seattle. And she said, using cultural knowledge, prior experiences, frames of reference, and performance styles of ethnically diverse students to make learning encounters more relevant and effective for them. Especially like when she said more relevant and effective for them. Them are the learners, the students. Why is it important for our work? Because our learners are typically the most vulnerable and disadvantaged group in the community. Very often, learning digital skills is not a high priority for them. They may need to worry about housing, food, health, jobs, and many other things. But providing culturally inclusive instruction will motivate our learners to learn technology. It makes the training more effective, and therefore our hard work can create a bigger and stronger impact of the lives of our learners. And the proper technology skills can actually help our learners resolve many of the issues that they worry about day to day. They can also find additional resources that were not available to them offline. And that's why it is so important for CTN to incorporate cultural inclusion in our programs. And I'll give you an example shared by one of our bilingual, English-Spanish bilingual instructor. His name is Freddie. Okay, as a matter of fact, Freddie was one of the learners himself last year, and now he has become one of our most reliable and productive trainers, serving his own community in Sonoma County. So Freddie said, many older adults similar to his age, they're hesitant to take the classes to learn technology because they are afraid that they're too slow, or they have poor memory, they lack confidence, and many of them have language barriers because they don't know any English or know very little English. So Freddie understands all of these concerns. And in his own language, he were able to encourage the older adults to take at least the first class, just to see if it is something that they consider beneficial, or if it's something that they like, they can do. And he also makes all the learners aware that the purpose of our training programs is to empower them to become more independent. And he explains why maybe it's family members are great for support, but they may not be a good teacher. Family members, they may oftentimes just set up a device and give them very little instruction of how to use it. But CTN teachers can teach them how to be independent and stay safe using the internet. So the learners, of course, they are motivated to participate in the training because one, Freddie speaks their language, and two, Freddie understands their concerns and was able to guide them to focus on the benefits rather on all the fears and all the concerns. So Freddie is like an amazing story that we always want to tell. It's from a learner to become a teacher, and how he can use what he learned and his skills to help the community of his own. Okay, next I want to share with you some of the best practices at CTN when we do culturally inclusive instruction. The first bullet point here is outreach by bilingual staff and volunteers. Any program can be successful if you have the participants, if you have the learners to teach. So for us, for CTN, we need to have the learners for us to teach, right? And to encourage enrollment, we want to use bilingual staff or volunteers to conduct outreach if at all possible. So the programs with translated flyers only, but no bilingual staff or volunteers to distribute the flyers or answer inquiries. It's okay, but it's usually less convincing and may generate less interest among the target audience. So always use the staff that speak the language or the volunteers that speak the language. It will generate much more interest among the target audience. Provide handouts in the learner's language. Obviously, you want to make sure that you include the training language. You use the language materials in the learner's language so that they can understand it. And so therefore, you want to make sure you include the budget to translate the materials by a human, not Google Translate. And when you provide materials in, let's say, Chinese, you want to be aware of the simplified Chinese versus traditional Chinese as an example, and the terminologies that you use. So Josie can give you a little bit more examples when we talk about the curriculum development. Devices, the next bullet point. Typically, we want to pre-configure devices into the learner's own language, but just be aware, some device may not support certain languages. I think we have experience with a particular model of a device, a tablet, that don't support the Russian language. So you just be aware of that. And I think a Chromebook don't support Khmer, the Cambodian language. So you just have to, be aware of the different limitations. And also some learners, they may actually prefer a device to display in English, even though their English is not very good, but they want to be able to type in their own language. So just like my mom, her tablet is in English, but then she wants to be able to type in her own language, Chinese. So just to be aware of that and able to customize the device for the learner. And depending on the class level or the skill level of the learner, it could also be a good training opportunity. Maybe you want to teach the learners or show the learners how to change a language setting by themselves. So definitely is a good training opportunity. Again, instructors who speak the language. I think we have examples by Josie from Josie and both Audrey to share, like, what if there is a learner who speaks a different language that is in a group lesson. Audrey or Josie, do you want to share some of your experience?
Yeah, I can share one experience I had. I was scheduled to teach a group class in English at a senior center in San Francisco. And on the first day of class, I had 3 students, and it turned out they all spoke some English, but their main language, I think 2 of them were Korean speakers, and 1 was maybe a Chinese speaker. So we were kind of in this place where we had some, basic level of English that we could communicate in, but it was definitely a struggle. We weren't able to progress nearly as quickly. I wasn't able to help set up the device properly for them to be able to type in their language because I didn't know how exactly myself. And then in one of the classes, I think we had 4 classes altogether. And at that time, we had a new staff member who had joined CTN who was a Korean speaker, and she was able to come shadow me. But since she was a Korean speaker, she actually sort of took over and was able to help clear up a lot of the questions that they had that were really relevant to their lives. So that's a prime example that, you can make things work if you don't have the ideal situation, but do whatever you can to have an instructor who speaks the language, and that really helps the learners get what they need from the class.
Yes, exactly. Audrey, do you have anything to add?
Yes. So we typically try to outreach a particular language, but there comes times where, for instance, I have taught at shelters, and with partners who have cohorts at shelters, sometimes it can be difficult to outreach to new participants because they come in and out pretty fast. So we typically allow at some of these shelters monolingual Spanish English when I'm teaching a class, where I will provide a curriculum in that particular language of a monolingual student who might have a difficult time reading in English, but prefers to read in Spanish and can follow along while I'm teaching a class in English. Other times we've had the ability to have case managers join the class. And if there is a language that is not the language, their primary language is English, that they've been able to sit with the student and translate as we go. But again, we do have various curriculums where we can assist them with that particular language. So I've had many different classes that I've taught, even online virtual classes, where we've had instructors who have, translators join our Zoom class and translate through phone with the learner who is in the class who does not speak that particular language. So we try to accommodate as much as possible. And in my end results has been very positive.
Great. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And my own experience, yeah, it is definitely best if you can have an instructor who speaks the learner's language. Sometimes for various reasons, cost or like what Audrey just pointed out, as shelters, they just come and go, and it's hard to form a group, consistent group with the same learners. If that's the case, I also, like my experience Chinese, some of them speak Mandarin, some of them speak Cantonese, and I tried my best to separate them out into two separate groups, but sometimes it's just not possible. We combine them and have to use two different languages. It slowed down the training, but yeah, that's the best we can do at that situation. Sometimes I would do also some one-on-ones before or after class with that person who is not speaking the primary language during the section, just to make sure that the learner understand the materials fully, and answer any further questions that they may have just before and after class. One-on-one sections, okay, may also help. Yeah. Okay, an instructor who is familiar with and understands the culture. So remember Freddie's example, the instructor was able to focus on the things that interest the learners, or help to relieve their concerns. That's always helpful. The instructor will also be able to use relevant examples and adjust the activities based on the learners, because they know the culture. So using the interpreter in class works, of course, but it's definitely not the same as a lesson that's taught by the teacher who speaks that language. Okay, and next I want to share some examples and activities that we usually do in our classes, and compare how we adjust it to different culture groups. The first example here I want to point out is about passwords. So for English speaking class, password is usually easier class to teach, because all the learners, they know English, and most of them can easily think of a password that they want to use. But for like a Chinese speaking class, a lot of the learners, they have very limited English ability, or they don't know many English words. They may only know the name, how to spell the name in English, and we definitely don't want them to use the name as their passwords. So instead, we will have to use different examples. We can ask them to think of maybe a series of numbers, maybe 8 numbers or 9 numbers, a series of numbers that means something to the learners. So they can remember the numbers, but they still have to add a couple of letters to the password, because that's a requirement. They have to have an alphabet or a symbol. So, but we have to switch, the examples that we use. Instead of think of, words, you want to think of maybe a series of numbers that's meaningful to you. So this is just an example how we would have to adjust a class because of the language barrier. Okay. And this example is about the Play Store or App Store lesson. When we teach the English speaking group, the slide on the left is because the learners already speak English, they may be more interested in installing a game, or some streaming apps to watch movies. For Chinese speaking or any non-English speaking groups, Google Translate is always a popular app that we want to teach, and useful app for the learners to use. I think Josie, you also share the same experience with your groups.
Yes, in the Russian speaking classes, we always spend a good amount of time on Google Translate, because that's critical for them, and it really has an immediate help in their lives. And it's also usually something that they can get on their smartphone too, if they don't already.
Is there any other app that you usually teach or encourage them to try out in the Russian speaking group?
Yeah, one app that most of the Russian speakers use a lot is Skype. They use that for staying in touch with family and friends that might still be abroad in other countries. So that's one we typically focus on, or WhatsApp as well. I know Audrey mentioned too that the Spanish speakers also use WhatsApp a lot. Yeah, really just catering it to what they need and what actually is going to benefit them.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, streaming apps. Definitely. I think a lot of the apps on the left here, they have both English and Spanish channels or shows. But for Chinese, not many on them or none on them. So we have to, find out what are the Chinese shows that the learners like to watch, and which apps will be available for them to watch those shows. I think this one is in Spanish. So Audrey, can you say something about this one?
Yes, and there is one app on here that we did not add, and it is YouTube. So YouTube is a really big app for multiple different cultures and languages. You can download, but this particular one, Telemundo, is a free Latin or Spanish speaking it would be like a TV channel, kind of like Pluto and Tubi, but it is a national channel. So a lot of my Spanish speakers want to watch their telenovelas or their soccer, their sports, and their soap operas. And so we typically download Telemundo for them.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I said, we talked about a little bit about these different countries or different regions may use different messaging apps. So like WhatsApp used a lot in the US, but also in Spanish speaking communities, they use WhatsApp a lot. Like WeChat is used primarily in China. Some of the learners, they're not from mainland China. They may be from Taiwan or from Hong Kong, and they use actually a different app. So you cannot assume that everyone speaks Chinese. They use WeChat. So like I think Taiwan, they use like Line. Hong Kong, they also use WhatsApp. So, and like Korea, they have a Kakao Talk that is like equivalent to WhatsApp, but they use it in Korea or Korean speaking communities. Skype for Russian speaking, as Josie just mentioned. So when we teach communication apps, so depending on the language, we will have to change or target specific apps and include that in the curriculum. So this is just an example how we have to adjust depending on the group.
And Sabrina, also just to add to that, social media too varies across countries. So in Russia, they have a different platform that tends to be more popular, especially among the older generation, than Facebook. So I might teach Facebook to an English group, but probably not to a Russian speaking group, because most of them don't have an interest in that so much. They would rather, if anything, learn the VKontakte is the Russian one. So
right, exactly. Yeah, and some of the websites or apps, they're not available in China. So if our learners want to use that to communicate, use that app to communicate with someone in China, maybe their relatives or friends, they are not going to use it. So we have to use something different. Yeah, so that's a very good point that you brought up, Josie. Thank you.
I want to add also real quick, with the Spanish groups that use WhatsApp, they really enjoy it because for them, it's easy to get on group chats as well. So that has always been beneficial for our Spanish groups.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lesson plan for email. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, Audrey, that non-English speaking groups, they tend to not use emails a lot because though all those communication apps, they're so easy to use for day-to-day communication with their families and friends. Our learners, tend to just use the communication apps. So when we teach email, the lesson plan for speaking English speaking learners versus non-English speaking learners, they are, somewhat different. For English speaking learners, most of them have already have an email account. So they may just have to reset the email account if they forget the password, but they already know the basic email features. Beyond that, they want to learn more intermediate features or beyond the basic features, such as like how to attach something, how to attach like a photo or document to the email, how to create folders, how to archive or report spam, etc. But for non-English speaking learners, because they don't use email a lot during day-to-day, or they don't use email at all for the day-to-day, instead we have to explain to them why email is important. Otherwise, they would say, oh, I don't want to use it, I don't need it. But email is crucial, essential if you are online. We explain to them why they can use it to create. When you need to buy something online, shop online, you need an email address. When you need to apply for benefits or ACP, you need an email address. So you need an email, even though you don't use it every day. So we have to explain that would be part of the lesson plan at the beginning. And we have to spend a lot of time help them create the email account. And most of the time, we just focus on the basic features, just how to send, read, or reply to an email, not those intermediate features that we sometimes teach to the English-speaking learners. So that is how we, adjusted the program, the lesson, depending on the group. Okay. This one about fact check website. When we teach media literacy, on the left, you see the website that we showed to our English-speaking learners, where or how they can check if this is a fake news or not. There a lot of them also provide an English, a Spanish version. But for Chinese-speaking learners, we usually provide these different resources where they can check the news, if it's fake news or not. And we included links to different regions major regions that speak Chinese. We want to make sure that we're politically correct. So we include China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. So this is some examples. Josie, do you have something to say about like when you teach fact check or fake news? What was your experience?
Yeah, this can be a challenging topic to discuss, not just in other languages, but also in English. But for example, in the Russian-speaking groups, Russian speakers could be from many different countries, not just Russia. So especially in the current climate with the war, I always try to be very sensitive in understanding that I don't necessarily know which country this person's from. They might be from Russia, they might be from Ukraine, they might be from Moldova or Uzbekistan, any number of countries. So if they're of the older generation, they do have a shared history and culture of the Soviet Union. So there is definitely a lot of mutual understanding there, but especially when it comes to news, that can be a sensitive subject. So it's more speaking really generally about just being sure to, not trust everything you see online, to use common sense, to check multiple sources, things like that, but being really sensitive to potential political differences in opinions. Right. And I found in English groups too, that's the same thing. When you start to talk about fake news and media literacy, you want to really clearly avoid getting political and targeting one party or the other, because we have a lot of cultural differences between parties and a lot of divisions there.
Yeah, exactly. And I always try to maybe guide them to focus on maybe something like health issues, like health related news, that try to take them away from any political. Audrey, do you have anything to add here about maybe
Yes.
Spanish?
So a lot of the fact check sites that we have, even though we have them in English, that I do explain to our Spanish groups that if they go in, like for example, we have the factcheck.org, but if you / English to Spanish, you will see that it once they click on the links, when their tablets, if they are converted over to Spanish, that once they click on the link, they can read each of these sites in Spanish. So
Nice.
So they have that capability of doing that. But like Josie says, I try to keep it less. When people start to get into political views, I try to sway them to be mindful that everyone has their own view on things, and it's okay. So that's why we have the fact checks for them, and yeah.
Okay, and I would imagine like Spanish speaking a learner, sometimes we're not sure where they're from too. It can be Latin American or European Spanish speaking countries. So we may want to pay attention to those different cultural groups as well.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, we have been focusing a lot on like different languages, but as I mentioned earlier, culture can be different skill levels, people with different education background or experience with technology, age, etc. So we want to share with you some of our experience when we develop our curriculum. Josie, would you like to take this?
Yeah, definitely. I've taught a lot of classes in San Francisco, single room occupancy hotels. And in those classes, you often get a really wide range, because those aren't just seniors. It could be, a couple people in the class that are my age or younger. There could be some that are seniors. So in those classes, you have to be really prepared to address a huge range in background and current knowledge. So typically that involves just planning multiple activities, so that, let's say with YouTube, for example, you would first introduce the very basic skills, and those people that are new to using YouTube can spend the time then just practicing searching on YouTube, finding videos. And as they're practicing those basic skills, you can then go and work with the students that are more advanced to cover things like, saving videos to your library, sharing videos. And then many of them, if they're totally comfortable with all that, then it can be, well, maybe it's publishing videos to YouTube. So just sort of preparing for that situation is really important. And also using different language based on who you're talking to. So the language and the way I communicate with someone my age is going to be different compared to someone that's older or new to technology.
Right. And sometimes I use the if there's more skilled learners in my class, and I always encourage them to help other learners, like be my teaching assistant, help others. I found that always help, because our training most of time is focused on basic skills, and some of the people who already know all those basic skills may feel we feel engaged or distracted. So instead, I would ask them to help me to help others learners, and that will make it easier, more engaging section for them.
Yeah, and I've had students who I realize, oh, they know a lot about this. They know a lot more than me, and then I say, okay, take over.
Yeah,
and you can learn from them too, because that's kind of the fun part, and I think it's very empowering for them too to see that they're sort of an expert in that.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to add to that when we do that, I find that they engage so much more and try to go around the room and help everyone. So I don't lose their interest. That's a good way to make them the unofficial TA.
Yep. Oh, okay. So do we have time for that? Let's see. What examples can you share about your learners in the community you serve? Is there anything in your, oh, maybe I'll save this, like I will leave this with you. You can think about it, or the audience, and just how you can apply what you've learned or here today to your own programs. Because I think we have some questions in the Q&A.
We had some comments earlier. Let's see, Isaac had mentioned Radio Garden is an app where you can listen to live radio from anywhere in the world. I hadn't heard of that, so I'll make a note of that.
Okay.
Leah had said that for job seekers with heavy accents, I sometimes advise listening to English radio or TV to practice their accents. Yeah, that's a great idea. I found with the Russian speaking groups, many of them are really interested in improving their English skills. So I often will help them to install Duolingo, for example, to learn English, or guide them to find English lessons on YouTube. Yeah, the internet is just an awesome resource for trying to improve English skills. Leah also said resetting passwords is a challenge for me to guide non-English speakers. Yeah, that is very difficult because the examples that you might give maybe don't make sense. Yeah, we all share that experience. So for my Chinese learners, I always think of numbers. That will make it easier, a little bit easier for them. I don't know if you have other strategies, Josie or Audrey.
What I've noticed is when learners get frustrated, they can't remember how to, what their passwords are, they tend to create new passwords. And then when we go into their account, I can see that they have multiple accounts under one phone number. So, which is fine to have, especially when a student doesn't want to, take too much time. But I do encourage them after class to come sit with me and try to do a password reset instead of constantly creating new email addresses.
Yeah, what I'll do is I might recommend, pick a word in Russian and then just write it in English characters. And that's also going to be pretty hard for someone to guess, which is a plus.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, we have a question here. Which ethnic groups does CTN serve the most? It seems Chinese and Spanish.
Yeah, I think those are the two biggest ones outside of English, but we also have instructors that speak Vietnamese, Korean, Josie speak Russian. We have a couple other staff who are Russian speaking, Tagalog. But yeah, I would say English, Spanish, and Chinese are the biggest one that we serve.
And then another question, is CTN only serving people in the US? Does or will CTN reach out to learners in other countries? Yeah, we're currently only in the US. Most of our direct services are in the Bay Area of San Francisco. Audrey, are you gonna add to that?
I just wanted to add to Leah's question about how do you group the learners by levels, language, computer skills. We have assessments that we share with our partners when doing outreach, which determines what level they are. Sometimes we have students who have intermediate level that will partake in a beginner class. And again, those intermediate level learners tend to become RTAs. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely grouping by language, I would say, is the priority. And then after that, a lot depends on the situation. If we have senior center, let's say, where we had a lot of people sign up, then we look at the, the needs assessments and say, okay, we're going to have these folks join this beginner group and then form an intermediate group. But in many of the cases, we don't have enough signups, so we have to hold a group and just understand that there will be a mixed range of skill levels within that. So in an ideal world, yes, you would group by language and skill level.
And for some of our programs, we're able to provide one-on-one, like individual lessons. Those are, you can tailor the curriculum based on that one individual learners, not in a group setting, but, one-on-ones. And our needs assessment is self-reporting, like what's the skill level. But during the intake one-on-one, we also have the instructor or the person who's doing the intake ask more in-depth questions and to see, what's the skill levels or for this learner, and then tailor the curriculum or tailor the training lesson plan for that learner. And sometimes people, when they say that they're intermediate, there are still things that they don't know, and they will always find the training helpful and learn something new that they didn't know before. There's so much in technology that I don't know everything either. So yeah, even they say that they're intermediate, there's always something that they can learn.
There's a comment, the resetting passwords issue is not just about selecting a password, but the instructions to reset. Yeah, it is very confusing. And even if a device is set up with a display language set to a different language, their email account might be set to English. So that's another complication I found, that, okay, why is this in English and theirs is in Russian? It could be the Gmail account settings as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go in and change the language of that Gmail account also.
Jessica wrote CASAs in ESL. Could you clarify, or Audrey, do you know what that would mean? Is that the name of an app?
I don't know. I'm assuming, but casas means houses. But casas in ESL.
Yes, but no, casas. Yes, you're right. Casas is houses in Spanish. But no, I know in Texas we use, many institutions, whether they're nonprofit or, like our local community college, which is also community college. Their adult ed program uses the Best Plus assessment. So when we have English language learners coming in for, let's say, Austin Community College, including where I am right now, we do a Best Plus assessment to actually determine the level. I do know that, and I think that's what Josie was saying, that you'll have someone say they're intermediate and they truly aren't. And in my own opinion, disclaimer, I don't want to do a disservice to a student, but I know that we use those assessments because I know, like at ACC, they have actually 4 distinct levels and they use Best Plus for that. So we know, where they are and how to gauge them. And not only are students pre-tested, but they're also post-tested for that measurable skills gain to kind of see how they're doing. Because after that, are we going to do GED, ESL, or it's always with that thinking, what's the next step? And CASAS is the same. In Texas, we have CASAS. It's another assessment that we use, and we use it, I believe, for ESL, and I know we use that for HSC as well. I'm trying to remember if I did CASAS for ESL, but it was just a question because it's hard when you speak to students. They may attempt to speak English, but when they read and write, it's a whole different story. So, sometimes it can be hard for assessing. So I was just kind of curious how you assess your students. I was just kind of curious.
Well, we do work with partners who have adult ESL learning. In fact, we have one going on right now. And so when we have a trainer who is taking on a class, for instance, a Spanish group, and we'll have ESL teachers that will also be on the Zoom call as well. So they might not necessarily sign up with Community Tech Network, and they originally sign up through the ESL partners, and so We do not do the outreach for them because they already have their set procedures on how to do that. But again, our instructors will work with the ESL instructors. So if there are any questions on a certain function on technology, they don't know how to work that, there's a collaboration between the partner, the ESL teachers, and our instructors.
Thank you, Josie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, with self-reporting your skill level, that can be, sometimes it's not the most helpful. I've definitely had learners who, when I first talk to them and ask, oh, have you used a tablet before? What are your skills like? They might say they're a total beginner and they don't know how to do anything. And then as I work with them further, I realize, oh, you actually do a lot of things already. You just sort of have this this sense that you don't know anything, but in fact you do. So always taking the time to ask more probing questions is definitely helpful to get a more accurate sense. Or even if you're in person, you can try to ask them to do a task, like, could you email me right now? And then it's a good way of seeing how confident they are.
All right, you guys, we have about 7 minutes left in this session. So I want to encourage you all to continue to ask your questions. And while you all are doing so, I am going to get to the fun part, which is the raffle, the drawing for today's session. And thank you so much, ladies, for a really incredible session. For today's session, we will be, or this particular session, excuse me, we will be giving away complimentary curriculum. So if your name is chosen, I'll do 3 drawings. If your name is chosen, you will be able to go through our curriculum library and choose a curriculum from our multilingual options. Multilingual and also on varying different devices. So this is a curriculum that we have already developed that is in our library, and then you can then in turn turn around and use it inside of your training efforts. So I'll be doing that in the background. I do have a little app here on my phone called Raffle Pro. I have put in all of your names, and it is a very fun little randomizer drawing tool. So that is how we're managing this process. I can't show you because it's on my phone, but that's how we're doing this. And I will let you know in just a moment who the lucky winners are.
Thank you, Sky. And yeah, we can continue if there's any more questions, but thank you all for participating in this section. And there we have some great resources sharing on the chat now. It's great. Yeah, talking about the libraries, I know San Francisco libraries, they have, of course, the ebooks and audiobooks, and they also have a specific app. I think UDN, and I think Kano is the name, is for Asian language magazines. So sometimes I'll teach that to my Asian speaking groups. How to use that if they're interested in the language magazines in their own language. Oh, one other assessment question that sometimes I use is if I give you a new device, a brand new device, you know how to set it up for yourself. And yeah. And if the learners say, yes, I can do it, definitely is an intimidator or beyond basic learners. If someone say, oh, no, I don't know. So I usually, my family usually set that up for me, beginner.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I'd like to go ahead and announce our winners. So we have 3 winners today, Shirley Doan, Damon Hung, and Lavonda Boyd. So the three of you will be reaching out to you based upon your registrations in order to get you access to your curriculum. Congratulations, and thank you so much for joining us today. For all of those of you that are here, we will be sending out the recordings of these sessions. And so you will have access to our slide decks and the video recording of the session. Thank you so much to my team for putting on a really powerful presentation today and for sharing this information out. And thank you so much to all of you for joining us today. Wishing you a very happy Digital Inclusion Week. There are couple minutes left for any last minute questions of the team. And then we will have a survey as you're exiting out of the meeting, if you wouldn't mind taking just a moment to fill out the survey for this session. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think we have a hand from Isaac.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It was very, very helpful and I really enjoyed it. So well, the one question that I had was in terms of the curriculum or when it comes to planning tools and meeting spaces, uh, what should one consider if you have students who may be hard of hearing or if they may be visually impaired or have low vision?
Right. I think in those cases, oftentimes one-on-one lessons will be most effective for any learners with a disability. So for hard of hearing, I have used like a transcriber device where everything I say will be transcribed like on the screen for the learners. But that again work better if it's a one-on-one class, so that there won't be any other, like a lot of people talking at the same time. The device won't be able to transcribe all of that to make sense. Yeah, so that and then is a free app that you can use on maybe on a tablet. So it's not like an extra cost, but I invested in like a little microphone so I can speak directly to the microphone and just transcribe and show all the words that I say on the screen for the learner. For visually impaired, depending on the level, of course, there are a lot of accessibility features on like iPads or tablets that can make it easier for the learner to see. Yeah, that's usually what we use. Josie or Audrey, do you have any other suggestions? I think Josie left. Audrey?
Well, yeah, I have always suggested to do if there is a possibility to do one-on-one or refer to one of our other internal programs that we have, because we do have various kinds of trainings. I have had individuals who are a little bit harder of seeing, and what we've done, and they wanted to stay in the class. I have show them how to use Zoom, how to use the magnifying glass as well. But I have not had any of the hard of hearing participants. We did have one with a group that I used to work with, who brought in a third party vendor who does focus on folks who are hard of hearing. So there are ways to get around this and help them, but we would have to do more of a one-on-one assessment with them and the partner.
Yeah. Thank you, Audrey. I think if you want to continue the conversation, we can move it out to email, because I think we do need to hop off.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
All
need
right.
to get to our next meeting. I did pull one more name because I was informed that Damon is a contractor of ours. So he already has access to our curriculum. And that name is Leah Cantor. So we will reach out to you, Leah, and get you a curriculum. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.